Hey, what's up guys? I figured I'd do a quick video. I was driving my Evo 8 and had a breakdown. It's kind of a strange issue. I was driving up a hill in third gear and the car just started free revving like it was in neutral. At first I thought maybe I lost the gear or the clutch. I've still got perfect pedal pressure. I can put it in all the gears. Every gear feels the same. There's no difference in feeling. I mean, it feels like it goes into every gear just fine, like normal. The only issue is if I push the clutch in, which again the clutch pedal feels perfectly fine. It has pressure. I'm not sure if you can see that. Okay, clutch pedal works great. Normal pedal feeling. You can push the clutch in, you can put it in gear, and then when you go to let out the clutch, the engine just free revs. So, as you can see, it cranks up just fine. Push the clutch in, first gear, start letting the clutch out. I have nothing. Still in first gear. So, putting it back in neutral. Gonna go ahead and kill the engine. Alright, so anyway, you just saw that even in gear, with the clutch out, the car's going nowhere. Can't even tell it's in gear. I mean, it's basically like it's in neutral, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the transmission. I'm thinking that it's a stripped clutch disc or input shaft. I took the risk on the comp stage 2 because I heard of all the lockout problems with the ACT clutches, which is usually what I've used in DSMs. One of the problems with the clutch is that your input shaft takes all of the shock and the abuse. I haven't really abused this clutch, so if it turns out that the splines on the clutch are stripped out, I'm going to be pretty upset. And I'm probably going to wind up going with a different clutch. I'll probably go with a sprung hub this time, just because comfort, mainly comfort. So hopefully I can get a clutch that shifts good at red line without any lockout issues. The comp clutch, it shifted fine. I don't have any gripes with it. But if it stripped out my input shaft, or if the clutch itself is the clutch disc is stripped out, I'm gonna be a little upset, especially since I do have a backup clutch disc I got from a friend. So and it has like no miles on it. So I'll probably just wind up selling my whole clutch setup to somebody who I don't know, who doesn't intend on getting 100,000 miles out of their clutch. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing out and we'll find out what's wrong. I'm doing something that I don't see a lot of people do, and that is I'm about to drop the subframe out of the car. There's a lower ball joint connection right here. I think it's what is 17 or 19. Really easy to get, especially with an impact. Disconnect the tie rod end, and then you have this big hole right over here. And then there's it's a bolt. It's a large bolt, 19 millimeter. And then there's one up here above the CV axle. I don't know if you can see it. Where's it at? There it is. That one right there, it's a 19 millimeter nut. That one, neither one are hard to get to, especially if you have an impact, because there is a hole in the control arm that you can stick an extension through and get to it. And then there's like a little 14 millimeter that sits back. Whoops. Trying to get this thing to focus. Sits back behind there. It's a little 14 millimeter. It's like a little tab with a bolt hole in it. I think you can see it. Yeah, right there. So take out that 14 millimeter and then everything will come out nicely. You do have to, probably the biggest pain in the butt is dealing with the power steering. So take the top hose off of the power steering pump, and if you notice, it's just leaking. It's going to leak the whole time. I've got a pan under there catching it. And then there's a long rubber line that connects to this hard line right here. I did the same thing. I put a bag over it to keep it from leaking out. Anyway, those hoses will come out with the rack. The steering shaft you disconnect from inside the car. It's not hard to get to. I think the hardest part about this is just marking the shaft so that you can put it back in the same way. But there's a little trim piece right here that you got to take out. Easiest way to do it: take the two 12mm bolts off of, or nuts off the gas pedal, so you can get the gas pedal loose, and then you can get this thing out, and then you can disconnect that shaft. So the power, or the rack, should easily be able to slip out of that steering shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it. I've got a jack supporting it with a long piece of wood right there, so that hopefully the rack just comes out. I'm sorry, the subframe comes out pretty easy. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot now and see what happens. There we go. Okay, looks like it's coming out a little bit uneven. Gonna need to check up on the driver's side and see what's going on, and also check my make sure my hoses are coming out through the top freely. I think we should be good. Maybe go ahead and stick that down in there. Hopefully all this stuff feeds through pretty easy. Probably can. Look at that. Rack's coming out. Looks like it's just fine. Let's check it inside the car. Well, that doesn't look like what I wanted it to look like. That looks like it's pulling the steering out of the car. That's not good. Okay, so I need to investigate that a little bit more. Alright, so after trying to get it loose in there, it just pulled the whole steering shaft out from underneath the dash. Not really sure how this is going to turn out, but that's the situation for now, and I'll figure it out when I get it out of the car.
That's not too bad. Oh, do you want to move some for 5 months?
And here comes the whole thing. Need to get that hose loose over there. Alright, so now it's out. I do need to go yank that little stub shaft or whatever the steering shaft is out of there. And yeah, it's going to present some issues because obviously I didn't mark the shaft that came out of the back of the steering column, so I'm sure I'll probably need an alignment now. But anyway, there's a subframe. It's out. This is the alternator bolt that goes on a DSM. I'm sure you could go to the junkyard and get something similar. This is a big socket. I'm thinking this is probably like 1 3/4 inches. I looked at it. It's either worn off or never had it on there to begin with. But all I did was thread this little guy in with this on it already, kind of like that. Thread it in and then knock it like that. Anyway, now that I got all that out of the way, figured I'd give a little tour of the underside of the car now that I don't have to worry about a subframe, and check out that transfer case. No issues getting that thing out now, and also the axles were pretty easy to get out. Of course, I didn't have to take anything loose as far as these two nuts up here. I didn't have to take the caliper loose because it's all just hanging from the struts anyways. Went ahead and dropped the transfer case. 6 bolts, 3 in the top, 3 in the bottom. I just put the jack under it, kind of pushed it off the transmission onto the jack, and then lowered it down. Really, really easy. Okay, well, transmission's out. I know what's wrong with the car. So option A was the input shaft of the transmission was stripped out. Option B was the clutch disc splines were stripped out. Well, it was neither of those. It's option C. The clutch just came apart all the way around. So that center hub of the clutch has come loose, and I'm about to get this pressure plate off, take a look at it. I got the car back in the garage, went ahead and put the subframe and the cross member back underneath the bottom of the car just so I could get it up, get it off the jacks, get the wheels back on. This engine hanger, I think it's what, 75 bucks from Harbor Freight, worked really good. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy it. I might do another video when I put the transmission back in the car, but I really just wanted to illustrate taking the subframe out and how easy it made everything. Transfer case came out extremely easy. Transmission came out extremely easy. I had zero problems getting it out. And I know from experience on Evos especially that fighting around with the back of the engine block and the subframe and everything, it's not fun. This might have taken a little bit longer, but my frustration level was about a 0 because everything came out real easy. I didn't have any problems. So anyways, appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy the video.